Who is Modok, precisely? His entry into the MCU might differ significantly from what we have seen in the comics and even in his brief Hulu series, which, although being well received, was canceled after just one season. Here, we provide you with some additional information on this character so you will be prepared for the next Ant-Man film. The origin story of Modok is intriguing because, despite beginning as a sincere attempt to create a menacing antagonist, it has evolved into something of a meme among Marvel fans. One specific Marvel villain, Modok, transitioned from battling with great heroes to appearing in a comic book series. In Tales of Suspense number 93, September 1967, Modok made his comic book debut. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were the creators. It stands for mental organism designed only for killing, as does his name. Scientist George Tarleton at Advanced Idea Mechanics was in charge of researching the cosmic cube, so famous these days thanks to the Thor or Iron Man movie. The company uses George as a test subject for sophisticated mutagenesis research, leading to the creation of Modok, or mental organism designed only for computing. The history of Modok. Tarleton's body was transformed by these operations, turning him into a giant head with incredibly small legs and limbs in addition to giving him incredible psychic abilities and extraordinary intelligence. In the end, since being that intelligent couldn't be good, Modok kills his I.M creators and seizes control of the business, renaming itself Modok, whose definition can be found at the start of the review. Unfortunately for him, his only option is to cause trouble for the Avengers, including the Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, and a collection of heroes known as the Champions, who included Black Widow, Hercules, Ghost Rider, Captain Marvel, Power Man, and others. Following several encounters with the heroes, Modok is unable to maintain control over the AIM. He would later make an attempt at retaliation, but after a failed raid on the Savage Land's riches and a fight with the Savage Khazar and the Hulk, Modok temporarily vanishes. Shortly after attempting to control Abomination for his numerous retaliations and, more importantly, after causing the new AIM leaders a lot of trouble, they decide that they must permanently cut ties with Modok. As a result, they hire a group that goes by the name of the Serpent Association in order to finally put an end to the villain, which they do through Death Adder. But you wouldn't suppose that this was the end of the story, would you? We are discussing the Marvel Universe, which has more resurrections than you can count. He was later revived by the same individuals who had issued the order to kill him, this time to assist him in building a new cosmic cube. They lost the game because as soon as Modok had the chance, he once more grabbed control of AIM's power, this time more permanently. Even while he might not be among the villains with the highest level of critical and popular praise, he is undoubtedly one of the most inventive and symbolic characters in the House of Ideas cast of antagonists. Modok was conceived by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, like many of Marvel's most brilliant and astonishing inventions. When Captain America is imprisoned by the villainous group AIM while on a rescue attempt to find Agent 13, he is first addressed in Thriller number 93. Captain learned that AIM was still operating even though the government had assumed they had disbanded, led by the enigmatic Modok. But readers didn't fully learn about the horrifying creation that our hero was revealed to be until the following issue. One of Kirby's most startling visual inventions is the huge mutant head held in a flying machine. Steve Rogers is given an explanation by Modok. He was merely used as a test subject by AIM researchers at first, but his experiments gave him great power and transformed his brain into something exceedingly dangerous. He appeared to terminate his life at the story's conclusion, but he would later come back to exact retribution. Readers first learned about him when he was Captain America's most terrifying adversary. George Tarleton was initially introduced as a scientist that AIM had selected for a test in his quest to develop the supreme intelligence. They were successful, but Modok was the only one who benefited as he instantly slaughtered his captors. Later, George's origin story would be revised to reflect that he was actually the son of an AIM scientist. In any event, AIM damaged themselves, and he would devote his life seeking retribution from both them and the superhero universe that opposes them. Modok's tale eventually determined that he could take the antagonist less seriously and added looking for a partner to his list of objectives. As a result, other feminine variations of the character, such as Ms. Modok or Madam, were created. There are more versions of Modok besides her. We learn about the villain's attempts at self-repair in West Coast Avengers Vol. 3 No. 1, October 2018, where we also learn that he relocated to Los Angeles and developed a new, muscular, and attractive body that he gave the moniker BRODOK. Bio-robotic organism specially designed for Kiss. His quest was cut short when the West Coast Avengers female members rejected him. Modok's abilities and powers. The experiment George was made to endure, which gave rise to his amazing intelligence and gave him a gigantic brain, thus his enormous floating head. His abilities include extraordinary insight, observation, and the capacity to unravel even the trickiest puzzles. But his enormous brain had unanticipated, lethal abilities. When Modok's limited patience runs out, he unleashes the vicious and lethal mind ray within him. He can produce an enormously devastating beam of cataclysmic power by concentrating the energy from his head. As if that weren't enough, he can also read minds and is telepathic. Additionally, he has the ability to produce force fields that make it harder for his adversaries to assault. Ant-Man 3, Marvel unveils Modok's character in the film. Finally speaking out about Modok, screenwriter for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. These were the character-specific details he disclosed. There are several reasons given by the studio to raise anticipation among its fans ahead of the upcoming premiere of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which is only a few days away. After making an appearance as the one who remains in Loki, Jonathan Majors will make his debut as Kang the Conqueror. Stature, on the other hand, will also make its debut. Modok, the antagonist, is one of the most eagerly anticipated by fans. Even the movie's screenwriter, Jeff Loveness, admitted that he loves this particular aspect of the character. Loveness claims in a forthcoming issue of SFX magazine that Modok is perhaps my favorite part about the movie. We obviously stayed extremely true to the comics in terms of style and appearance, but we also added a little more to it. Some of my favorite moments come from Modok and the chemistry there, but I might get fired from the Kang Dynasty when people see it, he also admitted in his statement. He continued, I'll just say that he was inspired by Kevin Kline in A Fish Called Wanda and Frank Grimes in an old Simpsons episode, this incredibly irritating, greedy, arrogant, but also really unhappy and insecure man who knows he's got a bad deal in life and he's trying to get the best out of him. The aforementioned information is crucial since it influences the villain's emotional background. It can be crucial for him to feel uncomfortable and display his most human side. Note that Marvel will wager that Kang is an opponent who has many valid reasons to hate him. Both currently have a chance to win over the supporters' hearts. The dark side is unquestionably one of the things that fans are most excited to witness in this film. Loveness continues, like Kevin Kline in A Fish Called Wanda, his ego will crumble the moment he's questioned, but he's also really good at killing people. He is a very loose character, and I enjoyed working with him. The movie became a lot of fun when we worked out Modok as a character, which was virtually the first day in the room, the writer admitted. The editor, however, had already revealed his motivation for having such confidence in this undertaking. In addition, he had already stated the motives behind his decision to join. We were really thrilled about doing an epic, high-adventure film with the least plausible superhero when I first met Peyton and Marvel. The plan was to pit them against Kang the Conqueror, the MCU's upcoming big villain, who presents an Avengers-level threat. However, he also claimed at the time that only Scott, Hope, and his family were against him.
It should be mentioned that the theatrical release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is scheduled for February 15, 2023.
The fifth phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will begin with this movie. Actor Corey Stoll's relationship to the Marvel Universe as Modok. Another casting rumor that was later confirmed as accurate involved Corey Stoll, who will be appearing in Quantumania in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But Yellow Jacket won't be performed by the same actor who played the evil Darren Cross. He will instead tackle the enormous task of bringing Marvel's most well-known floating head to life. Stoll briefly makes an appearance in the trailer, his face blown up to enormous dimensions. Is this just an instance of Marvel rehiring an actor they truly like for a new part? Think of Gemma Chan going from Captain Marvel to Eternals, or may there be anything more going on here that has to do with the character specifically? Canyon? It all starts to make sense if we go back to when we last saw Yellow Jacket being violently shrunk to subatomic size by the main character in the first movie. What if the MCU reimagines Modok as a development of Darren Cross rather than transforming Stoll into Modok? The stolen armor malfunctioned after Ant-Man damaged Yellow Jacket's suit by flying into it, crushing and tearing his body before dissipating. How was Yellow Jacket able to endure? The answer, however, appears almost immediately when Scott enters the quantum realm to escape the collapsing suit's crushing weight. Why didn't Cross get it if Scott did? There's a very plausible potential that the transition left him with merely an enlarged head, given we saw him mangled by his shredded suit. He would have every reason to despise Scott Lang in that scenario. It's also possible that Kang, who's seen in the trailer in his floating suit in the quantum realm, developed it. It's interesting to note that Quantumania seems to provide Modok a fresh style in addition to its traditional appearance. In a fleeting image, we catch a glimpse of him wearing golden military gear that looks to have been made to guard his face and brain. This seems like a Yellow Jacket suit to me. Modok video games and television. TV. Given that Modok appears to be extremely odd and challenging to bring to life, it makes sense that live-action adaptations have taken a while. But because of the character's famous status, several Marvel animated programs have over the years adapted him. He appeared frequently in Iron Man, Armored Adventures, and the 1990s Iron Man cartoon. The latter series was the first to go from Modok to Modok. It was a pattern that his early television career would follow. He has acted as a villain in numerous Marvel animated series throughout the years, including Marvel's Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Marvel, Disc Wars, and the Superheroes Squad show. He didn't receive his own titular series until recently, courtesy to Patton Oswalt's cartoon satire on Hulu. Even though it was only running for one season, he exposed a whole new audience to the Marvel villain. Video games. It's impressive that Modok only has 12 total television credits, given how successful he's been as a villain in Marvel video games. 20 video games have included this floating foe, most notably as the game's last boss in Marvel's Avengers. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Lego Marvel Superheroes, and Marvel Contest of Champions are other games in which you may have attempted to defeat him. Consequently, you will have either played with him or against him already. The animated series Modok. The first episode of the animated series M.O.D.OK was released in May 2021. The project's director, Jordan Blum, stated, "Who is MODOK for me?" Well, we have to start with how it was made. It is equally recognizable to me as all the other Stan Lee and Jack Kirby classics. The design is kind of like Out of a Nightmare, but yet kind of adorable. He was created by Stan Lee as a terribly damaged figure who was always defeated by his bloated ego and fragile skin. Although he's been depicted as a threat over the years, and I believe our show will examine him much more as a human being. In the end, Modok is a snarky, insecure, egomaniacal egotist with no social graces. It appears to be really simple to do. M.O.D.O.K, a supervillain, has long sought to rule the entire planet. However, M.O.D.O.K is prepared to face his greatest obstacle yet, a crisis of middle age. After years of losses and failures against Earth's mightiest heroes, being removed as the commander of I.M while dealing with marriage and a disintegrating family life. The animated series Modok was destined to fail. Due to the division being shut down by Marvel Studios, the series that was to be a part of the animated universe that Marvel Television and Hulu hoped to create was immediately canceled. However, the Hit Monkey and Modok projects were so far gone that both were approved for Star Plus release. Regarding the second season, it is a comedy about the antics of an evil scientist who has lost favor due to his repeated failures to rule the world as well as the collapse of his family and technological empire. Pieces. The main character learns the terrible cost of being a villain due to abandoned goals and ongoing humiliation. The opening of Modok, Patton Oswalt, resembles one of those financial stories by Adam McKay. After losing against Iron Man and the Avengers numerous times, the wicked genius learns that AIM is insolvent and, against his will, agrees to sell it to Austin van der Sleet, a billionaire who conceals sinister intentions beneath his cool exterior. The series' central theme, however, is how a damaged and dysfunctional family is healed, not how the protagonist exacts revenge on the superheroes or his new boss, overwhelmed by Modok's disregard for family life, his ex-wife Amy Garcia and her daughter Melissa Fumero. A teenager who wants to become a supervillain and has the same body as her father, giant head with tiny legs and arms, and Lou, Ben Schwartz, an eccentric teenager who isn't shy about expressing his feelings and acting outrageously. The human side of the series starts to take precedence over economic problems or those involving heroes and villains as the 10 chapters go. Fighting his massive ego, Modok attempts to rebuild the family his way by fortifying bonds with his kids and attempting to win Jodie back, without luck. Each of the 10 episodes centers on a different internal struggle for the character, such as heartbreak, loneliness, frustration, failure, or remorse for lost time, aside from the villainous intentions and the unfettered passion to return to his previous life as a supervillain. Despite the villain is a man-machine with great intellect, he lacks social graces. Thankfully, this circumstance plays a large part in the humor, as else the plot would focus on the drama of a man who is rejected by his ex-wife, hated by his children, and undervalued by heroes and other family members. Some choices that open the door to redemption in this context, such as Lou's bar mitzvah dance, Melissa's etiquette lessons, or her refusal to exterminate clones at the risk of killing her entire family, come into focus. The character's downfall, nevertheless, comes in Chapter 4 when he assembles a group of filthy, opulent fifth-tier villains to take Captain America's shield. Genuinely happy and compassionate moments on the part of the show's lead occur between absurd sequences and sorrowful ones. Modok gradually reveals his trauma in this order, until he is ultimately split between his goal to rule the world and his yearning to reunite with his family. In addition, he takes a choice in the season's last episode that, despite all the changes he has through, renders him an entirely broken antagonist. Similar to how the brief epilogue is still depressing, tragic, and consistent with the 10 chapters, it also hinted at a potential second season. Modok, a villain who later became an anti-hero or perhaps a hero, ultimately achieved his goal of destroying the planet, even if it means paying the ultimate price to do so.